All right, so here's our matrix A. So how many rows of A contain a pivot position? So we cannot look at the way it is now. We need to do elementary row operations so that we can find the pivot positions. So this one here is good. I want that. And I want zeros below it, right? So I'm going to add row 1 and row 2. And then I'm going to take -2 times row 1 and add it to row 4. So let me do that. So 1, 3, 0, 3. The first row stays the same. The row 3 stays the same. Okay, so I get to this point here. All right. So before I go and make a 1 in this position, right, this looks like it's going to be a pivot. Before I make a 1 there, I'm going to be smart about it, and I'm going to use the fact that it's a 2 to get these two terms to be a 0. So I'm going to take 2 times row 2 and add it to row 3. And then I'm going to take 3 times row 2 and add it to row 4. All right, so the first row and the second row stay the same. 0, 3. Okay, so this next row turns into all zeros, and then the very last row, 4, turns into this. All right, so where are my pivots? So how many rows contain a pivot? So I see a pivot here, a pivot here, and a pivot here. This is just my matrix A, right? This is not an augmented matrix. So how many rows? So 3 rows contain a pivot. Answers that question. All right. So then the next question is, does AX equal B have a solution for every B in R4? So let's go back at our really, really important theorem here. So here I have, oops, dear. So here I have this theorem that says A has to have a pivot position in every row in order, back to the question, for us to have a solution for every B. A solution for every B. For every B, this thing has a solution. So since I do not, right? So the answer is no, I do not. Since there is not a pivot in each row of the matrix A. Okay, so the next question is, can each vector in R4 be written as a linear combinations of the columns of A? No. It cannot, since there is not a pivot in each row of A. Okay, and so let's go back to our theorem here. So if I have a pivot in every row, then I have these others happening, right? I have a solution. B is a linear combination. So it's not a linear combination. It's not a solution. So the last question, do the columns of A span R4? Same answer, no. Since A does not have a pivot in each row. Okay, which of these questions are asking the same thing? All of them, right? They all are answering the same thing, asking the same thing. Whoops, I keep doing that. All asking the same thing. All right, so time for you to practice.